Hey everyone, what's going on? It's 2 minutes to review. It's Matt.
And it's Zach.
Longest album review in under 2 minutes wins our little game we got going on here. You click the picture. This is a very, very, very important album. I'm not going to say it's one of the most anticipated albums of the year.
Whoa, that's a lot of hype.
Well, because it's the first album from the Mars Volta in about a decade. I know they have a very big cult following.
It's funny you say that because at the expense of maybe ruffling some feathers, barely 2 minutes into this episode, I must admit that they are a band that I always struggled to really get into. I recall seeing them live with the Red Hot Chili Peppers back in 2006 on the Stadium Arcadium tour and just kind of going, huh? Why is everyone raving about this? And definitely Cedric is an incredible singer. And the stuff that he's done with Omar is just, there's definitely impressive. But I just always I even at one point, Matt was like, maybe we should do an Am I Missing Something episode on the Mars Volta. But we are here now with, like, as you mentioned, their first album since disbanding the Mars Volta nearly 10 years ago. It's funny because I feel like I'm really curious what fans are actually going to think of this album without getting too much into my review.
Yeah, and that's one of the big points that I'm going to be making in my review too. So let's just say we get into the reviews.
Well, I will say this before we even get into it. I mean, I think they've even said in interviews that they wanted to make a pop album.
Right. This is something when everything is so out there and outrageous, the most outrageous thing that they could do is make a pop record. I agree. 100% agree with that.
So I think now's the time. Like you mentioned, let's just get into the reviews. Matt, do you mind if I go first?
Uh-oh.
Ha.
Uh-oh. You ready?
As ready as I'm gonna be, buddy.
3, 2, 1, go.
So you remember in season 4 of Game of Thrones when Oberyn partakes in Tyrion's trial by combat against the Mountain? The Mountain gets a few jabs in, but Oberyn quickly stabs him and basically takes him down, to which leads Oberyn to basically go, no, this can't be. How's the Mountain? No, that can't be this easy. And basically taunts him like, no, confess to killing my sister. To which then the Mountain trips him by surprise and then gouges his eyes out as he confesses to the horrible things he's done. In a less extreme way, this album kind of does the same thing in that when Black Lights Shine starts off the album, it kind of, makes you go like, okay, where could this go? And then suddenly there's just a lot more, not just poppier songs, but easily digestible songs. And it leaves you to go, wait, no. How can a band known for being so sporadic and all over the place produce this album I can actually grasp and understand what's going on here? And then as the album comes to a close with the requisition, boom, it takes you by surprise. Now, yeah, definitely not as violent of a twist as it was in Game of Thrones, but nonetheless, actually an enjoyable twist. And there's definitely some songs that are enjoyable and they twinkle that has a little bit of that Latin jazz flair that the band is known for. But all in all, the whole album makes me go, huh, is this really the same band that released Francis the Mute or the same band that I constantly was struggling to get into? How is this not the Mars Volta?
And we have a time. And out of 5 stars?
I'm going to say 3. Cedric's voice is definitely great on this album. And there's definitely some interesting melodies. I mean, I'm all about pop. And this is definitely an interesting, dark pop record. But I just can't help but think as I'm listening to this, I'm like, it's almost not predictable. That's not the way to say it, but is this really the Mars Volta, or did they just end up working on an album and at the last minute go, you know what, let's just call it Mars Volta, even though I know they've worked on it since 2019 on and off, but like, is this really the Mars Volta? And I realize I'm sure you're going to have some conflicting thoughts on what I said, so I'll stop talking and let you get into your review.
Let's do it.
Longest review in under 2 minutes wins. Matt, you ready?
Let's do it.
Set. Go.
So this album is definitely going to be polarizing to some fans of Mars Volta. It's easily their most mature sounding album to date, but It also is their most different sounding album to date, which, to the quote that we talked about earlier, is definitely what they've accomplished. So really, Gone is that crazy and abrasive sound for a more light rock and pop progressive sound that could easily be acceptable at a grown-up dinner party or even a trendy art gallery. And the fact that only 2 tracks really cracked the 4-minute mark is incredible for a band that's gone over 10, 15 minutes on tracks before. And the layers of sonic intrigue that are really kind of laced through this album proves that a pop or light rock album, it doesn't need to be boring and really can bring some new ideas to the table, really in a genre that's more directed towards like middle-aged soccer moms, like Black Light Shine. The vibe on this song is really cool. It's kind of got like a laid-back Caribbean style vibe. And really, I could compare it to a song like Fun, Fun, Fun from Pharrell Williams that you might have heard in like Despicable Me. Graveyard Love. It's an unsettling, dark, electronic pop song, and it's great. And if you're thinking that, well, I'm an old school Mars Volta fan and really this doesn't suit me, I would say maybe listen to a track like Flash Burns from Flashbacks and No Case Gain, because you really kind of do hear some of the old school Mars Volta come through, but it really keeps the focus on the mission statement made by the album. And finally, for my own personal reasons, Tourmaline is one of my favorite tracks on this album because it really sounds like they were influenced by one of my favorite experimental acts, Lunatic Soul, as well as some other Steven Wilson-inspired projects that easily could have been heard on this track, and it really makes it one of the best for me. So if you haven't ever listened to the Mars Volta in the past, go into it knowing that this isn't the Mars Volta, period. And if you have listened to the Mars Volta in the past, give it a chance.
All right, time is locked in. Sounds like you like the album, but let's confirm. Out of 5 stars, what would you give it?
4.
What's stopping you from giving it that almighty 5?
I think it drones a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of tracks on the album, and it can get tiresome to listen to, especially if you're looking to listen to this type of music. That's great and that's fine, but for somebody who, and let's face it, in our day and age, where it's so easy to switch between just millions and millions of songs to listen to at the drop of a hat, you kind of are like, all right, well, maybe let's get on with this, or maybe let's listen to something a little bit different. But if you're sitting down and you want to really just take in this album, there is so much that's on here that is so intriguing. Like I said earlier, it really is a progressive album with short tracks. It's
funny. I feel odd that I'm so not bothered, but just so bewildered by how straight to the point almost these songs are, because I actually feel like the sporadicness of the Mars Volta is what's kind of turned me off from them in the past. And maybe what's kind of weirding me out, and I'm all for bands evolving their sound. But to me, I felt like it was almost so weird that the first album they've released as the Mars Volta since disbanding nearly 10 years ago is an album that if you had told me it was anyone else, I would have believed you. Like, is it, and it kind of goes down to the point of should a band, if they are apart for so long, should a band, when they come back, sound more like what they sounded like when they left off? Or is it okay that they sounded like as if they just picked up where they would have been 20 years if they had never broken up?
Honestly, I don't care what they sound like when they come back. It's to the point of the Mars Volta, it was always supposed to be a revolving type of sonic experiment. It wasn't ever supposed to be kind of grounded or rooted in one area, even though a lot of the earlier stuff could be argued that, yeah, it was kind of in that same vein of like just the unexpectedness of, and hard rock and kind of bringing some of the At the Drive-In vibes to the mix. But I think coming back, and for fans just like you who, well, don't know if you're a fan, it sounds like you're not, but
I appreciate them. I wouldn't call
Okay.
myself a diehard fan, but I've grown to appreciate them more than I did when I first listened to them.
Okay. So for anybody who's a diehard fan of the Mars Volta, and even for people who have like a passing knowledge of who they are, the most outrageous thing that an outrageous band can do is the thing that you expect them to do the least, which would be a pop, light rock, very tight and cohesive album. And that's
Which I
what they
admit,
did.
I would admit, I think if anyone's fans would actually expect them to do that, it is the Mars Volta fans.
I don't think so, because
I don't know. I feel like I would argue that a lot of, I mean, even they, in one of the interviews I was reading, they were even saying how they were pleasantly surprised or suspicious of how many fans actually dug the singles that they released.
And I think it's just because it's part of the name too, right? Like, you know, if you, let's put it this way. If Led Zeppelin came back and they put out like a 2-minute long punk song, people would dig it, right? So just because Led Zeppelin's name is stamped on it, but Mars,
that's a bold statement.
I would say that Mars Volta fans are going to eat up anything that Mars Volta puts out. And I think that for, like I said, for an outrageous band, I really like the thought process of doing something completely 180 from everything else that you've done to be different.
I guess I'm also just knowing that Omar and Cedric have collaborated on other bands and projects since. I mean, not only reuniting at the drive-in, but also just forming other bands with each other, different types of music. I guess I'm also just curious as to like, well, why does this have to be the Mars Volta? I get it, that's always evolving sonically, but I mean, could you argue that if they had named this any other project, it would still get the Mars Volta fans up? Like, it just feels, I have to question, are you just trying to market on the Mars Volta brand? Or are you actually trying to evolve Mars Volta?
I guess we won't know until the next album.
Yeah. And with that, let's get into what really matters. The times. Matt, how did I do? Did I come in under 2 minutes?
Well, for once you did.
Ooh.
1 minute and 44 seconds.
Ooh. Well then, Matt, guess what? That makes Zachy Boy the winner, because you came in at 2 minutes and 24 seconds. It's one of your longest reviews to date.
There were things to be said here.
Yeah. You got emotional. I get it. Well, I'll spare everyone the victory lap I'm about to do and encourage you to let us know what you thought of the Mars Volta's comeback self-titled album. Did you agree with Matt in that it was a breath of fresh air, essentially, and it was really enjoyable? Or were you a little suspicious like me? Let us know on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at Epic Footnote. Also subscribe to our YouTube channel to hear a lot of cool episodes just like this. Maybe even check out a few cool videos. And thank you so much to Lucky 13 Beard Co.
Log on to lucky13beardco.com and throw anything in your cart, including our brand new Lemmy-inspired beard oil, bourbon, tobacco, cola, and leather. It smells incredible. You're going to feel great. Your beard is going to feel smooth. And we're going to give you 10% off of that and anything else in your cart with the code EFP10. Make sure you use it at checkout. Lucky13, the number, beardco.com, using code EFP10 at checkout.
And before all the Game of Thrones fans try to come at me, yeah, I'm not 100% sure I pronounced those names correctly either. Whatever. Get over it. But thanks for listening anyways, and we hope you join us for another episode real soon.
See ya.